marked for reduction round about the time that COVID-19 struck, and the promise was that, well, once the situation moderates after COVID, we'll go back and we'll do the reduction that ought to have been done from about 2019-2020. The time is nigh to see if that will happen, and perhaps that will be the trigger for the commercial banks to pass through the reduction that they've gotten from the BOJ onto us, the consumers, and people who are in the SME lines, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise. It's been a good debate, a spirited conversation. Let's continue it here on Lead Story. Nika Lewis is sitting by with the news at 7.
What would you do if a date asked you how much you weigh?
Ask him how much his mama weigh.
All new Family Feud.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at noon for Tuesday, January 28, 2025. I'm Ramon Gordon. Thank you so much for joining us. Repairs to the Ocho cruise ship terminal in St. Anne are on track, following serious damage caused by unusual weather in February last year. Prime Minister Andrew Holness updated Parliament on the rehabilitation progress recently. Here are the details.
A weather event in February 2024 caused a significant damage to the Ocho cruise ship terminal, with waves slamming a cruise ship into one of the main docking areas. The pier infrastructure was severely impacted, including breasting dolphins that required extensive repairs.
Just to be clear, a breasting dolphin is a concrete structure along a pier which supports the load of the vessel moored. So these are concrete reinforcements that when the ship is docked against it, it gives that counterbalancing support.
The government approved $20 million for emergency repairs and upgrades to the facility, which is critical to Jamaica's tourism industry. Work began in December 2024 and is expected to be completed by September 2025.
Jamaica has not lost any vessel scheduled to dock at the island's berths, as they have been accommodated, as I've said, either at Reynolds or in Falmouth or Montego Bay. Nevertheless, every effort is being made to have the Ocho Rios main terminal reopened by the start of the next cruise ship season in September 2025 to prevent any possible rescheduling of vessel itineraries.
Opposition leader Mark Golding raised concerns about insurance coverage for the damaged infrastructure, while highlighting a worrying trend in stopover arrivals.
You didn't mention any insurance coverage, Prime Minister, to help defray the costs related to these repairs. I don't know if that's indicative of the fact that there is none. And the Minister of Tourism has also said that the total visitors to the country has gone up. But the preliminary data that I have seen indicates that for stopover visitors coming through the airports, 2024 was actually a lower figure than 2023.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness defended his administration's response, saying investments in resilience have minimized the impact of disasters.
This is the administration, Mr. Speaker, that has ensured that our economy is resilient. Not that side. They have no clue, Mr. Speaker, about what it means to be hit by an unexpected disaster, absorb and recover.
the government aims to reopen the Ocho Rios terminal before the next cruise season in September, ensuring Jamaica remains a prime location for cruise travel. Ramon Gordon for CV.
Farm roads in St. Anne's Southwestern have been given a facelift under the government's National Farm Road Rehabilitation Program. The initiative aims to enhance access for both residents and farmers who rely on these roads for transportation. Here's Britannia Witter.
Farmers in the rural community of Grants Bailey, St. Anne are celebrating a development that promises to enhance their agricultural productivity, the repair of key farm roads. According to Member of Parliament for the area, Xavier Main, for years farmers have faced challenges with poorly maintained roads, which often resulted in losses and low productivity. However, he believes things are about to change.
Agriculture is in a better place in Grants Bailey, and so too the quality of life of the residents of Grants Bailey is significantly improved by virtue of this development.
The project, which is part of the government's broader efforts to invest in farm road rehabilitation, is expected to bring relief to many local farmers. Agriculture Minister Floyd Green emphasized that this is just the beginning for the community.
I want you to call this phase 1, because we're not done. We're going to come over the next 3 years and do the entire road in this area under our farm program. One by one, step by step, phase by phase, to get all the road done.
In December 2024, Minister Green announced that 81 farm roads are slated for rehabilitation. Britannia Witter, CVM News.
And the body of a missing St. Thomas woman was discovered in a section of the parish today. Dead is 20-year-old Rashini Baumfield, also known as Denisha. Her nude body was found meters from her home in a nearby gully on Bonnet Road. It's understood Baumfield was last seen on her way to a funeral in the community days ago. Her distraught mother spoke with CVM News at the scene.
No, yesterday I'm there at Portland and I get a phone call say, if I come over now, I'm going to buy a load. And I get a phone call saying if I come home now. And I ask them what. I say, me need to cry on the background and I say, then find my daughter in purse with all of the money in it and her iPhone and her handbag around the corner and one pair of slippers left around there. But when them drive and go back down there, them not find any pair of slippers. Somebody come back and come take up the slippers. So me drive and I with me come here now. I come here come see a whole heap of police. Me see one jeep with police and a whole heap of people. So me don't know really what. Me don't know where. Me don't know if she and nobody in no anglings. Me don't know what happened.
They found the body yesterday. Now, Vice President of the Jamaica Bankers Association, Radcliffe Daly, has emphasized that banks have carefully considered the needs and concerns of their customers when implementing financial policies aiming to strike a balance between profitability and customer support.
From the banker's perspective, there are a few things that the consumers need to understand. One, when policy rates moved up by 650 basis points, no one can find any institution that went up more than 100, maximum 200 basis points. So that's the reality, that while interest rates were going up, banks maintained their lending rates. One, because we recognize the challenge that it would cause to our customers, and two, the impact that it could have on the country. So we recognize that the productive sector needed as much of a cushion as possible, and that is what we provided. So 650 basis points, George, we only moved by maximum 200 basis points in some instances.
But speaking on CVM's lead story, veteran Member of Parliament Fitz Jackson voiced strong opposition to the Jamaica Bankers Association's claims, arguing that local banks are not doing enough.
What the banks have been doing is to secure their levels of profit against all other costs, some of which are mentioned here, at the expense of the banking public. We are not asking for any increased payment to the customers. And I don't want to conflate the question of, say, margin between interest rate, lending rate, and the saving rates that banks pay to their customers. We are simply saying that for the customers who make the business of banking a viable one, by putting your deposits in your institutions, you must have a minimum level of service.
The medical scene will be abuzz as Jamaica is set to host the 23rd Caribbean Neurosciences Symposium geared towards highlighting global health, technology and leadership in healthcare. Head of Neurosurgery and Medical Chief of Staff at the University Hospital of the West Indies, Dr. Carl Bruce, on Sunrise this morning, demonstrated the use of medical technology and more on the symposium.
When you have back pain and we say you have a slip disc in Jamaica or a prolapse disc, these days we don't open your back. So what we do is that we go through a scope, an endoscope, and you can just put that down, put it down.
You see that?
And the only thing you'd be looking up on the screen,
to find.
and you would be taking it out. So when the operation is finished and you take out this, you've had only a very tiny incision, you can leave hospital the same day. And so our hospital bed that we value so much that we really want to think there, these patients no longer have to stay in hospital for a long period. And this extends beyond spine into many different things. Well, if you think of putting thousands of patients together and you put the pictures of their spine MRI together, the computer can automatically read and tell you what's wrong and put together the symptoms and give you a diagnosis. And we go for 3 days at the Half Moon Conference Center in the Half Moon Shopping Village. We want all of our healthcare workers, physiotherapists, speech therapists, nurses, doctors, wherever you are in medicine, we have something for you. Even the health policy people, finance people, as we said before, because we're doing our continuing medical education.
We continue with the news after this. Stay with us.
Excuse me, that looks delicious. Where did you get that pizza?
Pizza, please. Best pizza in town.
Pizza Please, the widest variety of pizzas in Jamaica. Grab a slice or order a whole pie. Find us at 4 locations across Kingston and Ocho Rios and at pizzapleaseja.com. Pizza Please, Italian pizzas, Jamaican flavors.
What do these people know that you don't know? They understand how listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange can improve the profitability of their company. They know the potential for increasing the company's capital, the governance requirements, the tax responsibilities, the ownership implications, and the procedures for listing. They have the knowledge to make an informed decision on whether or not to go public. Knowledge is power. If you don't know, you can't act. Begin a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange to gain the information you need to make a decision.
I'm Stafford Burrows.
I'm Marilyn Burrows.
My name is Hugh Graham.
I'm John Mafood. My name is Derek Cottrell, and we are listed on the Jamaica Junior Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Or discussion segment. Donald Trump has signed an executive order aimed at re-evaluating and realigning United States foreign aid. A 90-day stop order has now been issued on all U.S. aid programs. Many global programs for health and national security are funded by the United States. Assistance may be affected, causing panic for international groups. Joining us now to discuss how this freeze may affect Jamaicans is Development Communication Specialist Indy McClymont Lafayette. Mrs. Lafayette, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me as well.
To start a conversation, what are some of the major projects that may be affected by the foreign aid freeze, and what do you foresee their impacts to be?
This is a significant move by the U.S. government, and it has a lot of implications for us, both in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. U.S. AID funds a lot of development initiatives such as climate change efforts, sexual and reproductive health programs. So, for example, persons who are, it has the largest program for helping persons who are impacted by living with HIV/AIDS, for example. It also funds reproductive health programs. So it has a significant impact for us here. You know, a lot of persons rely on the PEPFAR funding through the local USAID office for their medication, for their testing. A lot of the free HIV testing that we see advertised, a lot of that comes through US aid. So it will have a significant fallout, especially for persons who are, you know, more vulnerable, poor persons, for example, who have an issue accessing the medications.
Mrs. Lafayette, what do you believe was the rationale for this pause? Because if I do recall, President Trump also announced that the United States will be withdrawing from the World Health Organization, that's the WHO. So a lot of very globally focused, you know, collaborative type projects he's pulling away from. So what do you think is the rationale this time around, halting these programs for 90 days in the first instance, of course?
Well, as we know, that his policies are quite different, quite radical, and so it's a two-pronged. Globally, the focus, it seems, from his perspective, is not as much on development issues. So for the Paris Climate Agreement, this is the second time he is withdrawing the US from it. That will take a little bit of time to come in effect based on how the legislative framework is set up globally. However, when it comes to the direct US aid that he provides to countries, that's something that there is a more immediate control over. So for now, when he says, listen, we're halting aid for the next 3 months until we see if they are in line with our policies.
Mrs. Lafayette. That's
yes.
exactly that's why I asked that question. Because President Trump has said or stated clearly that the United States is no longer going to give out funding to countries that are not supportive of its policies. That's not a verbatim quote, but that's the sentiment that he has communicated. So I have to ask, could all of this simply be political? Are we playing politics with very serious funding?
It is political. It is. And so, but the fallout is that persons who are not directly playing politics will be impacted. So as I said, for example, persons living with HIV, quite a few, the Caribbean does have a significant number of persons living with HIV in the region. Those persons would be immediately impacted, because it's not a case like with the climate agreement, there's some lead time. This is now, immediately. I read that in the US, for example, persons who are working at the USAID office, some of the senior persons were sent on leave because they were trying to extend the time frame for within the 3-month pause, because there was no notice. So it's really a shock for many entities globally. There's no adjustment time, you know, and so partners in the NGO sector, for example, who would be working closely to implement the programs, they would be left holding the bag because there's no funds to pay the persons who are performing some of these services on the ground.
Mrs. Lafayette, certainly the short-term solution is not going to be anything that is easy, but is it time to possibly start looking inward for the solutions that are provided via US funding? What is the feasibility of self-funding a lot of these initiatives for which we're so reliant on the US for?
That's a great question, because the US is possibly the biggest aid provider of aid globally. Now, in 2010, when Jamaica and the Caribbean was significantly impacted with the recession, and the NGO sector in particular was hit very hard because it's very dependent on global funding. And similarly with this now, it brings up the same issue. Many Jamaican NGOs fell by the wayside out of 2010. This could possibly already shrink our small non-government entity sector, and so these entities will have to look at stuff like more social enterprises, what can be done locally that can generate funds that they can put back into the NGO, and maybe even online, like monetizing their social media pages. So looking at multi-pronged ways to raise income, that will help to keep their doors open, because as it is now, a lot of persons will be unemployed or laid off following this 3-month review, because if the policies are not in line with Trump's policy, those programs will be shut down. So definitely a new approach has to be looked at.
Mrs. Lafayette, the